My sister-in-law stole the names of all my miscarriages and used them for her own children, then poisoned my prenatal vitamins to induce another miscarriage. She actually thinks I'm not going to ruin her life right now. What was the sweetest revenge you ever tasted? Sleeping unprotected with my enemy's brother. For years, I was infertile, but not just infertile. I was false hope. Infertile. You see, I had 3 miscarriages, all in the second trimester. Luckily, everyone was very supportive, except my sister-in-law, that is, because the first time I cried in her lap, she stroked my hair and told me she would always be there for me. She told me that when my niece, her baby, was born, I would be her godmother. I had even come to consider her one of my closest friends. Fast forward 2 weeks to her baby shower. That's where she announced her baby's name. As soon as she said it, bile rose in my throat. It was Faye, the exact same name as my unborn daughter. "Well, you weren't going to use it anyway," was all she said when I asked, squealing like a pig on fire. Her words were like daggers. When my husband came over to ask what was going on, I told him. But instead of getting angry, he just laughed. Well, men can be pretty stupid sometimes. So I waited until we were in the car driving home to explain the situation again. And my husband was the love of my life, but he was also passive, having grown up as the scapegoat of their family, the one who gets mugged on the street and apologizes for not having more money to give. "That's just the way she is, honey," he said with a sigh. So I told myself that at least my unborn daughter's name could live on in someone else's baby, and I focused on boosting my fertility by being a healthy Pilates princess, but it never worked. A year and a half later, another baby died in my womb. A few weeks later, I was standing in the aisle of Walgreens when I saw this. My sister-in-law had made a post in honor of her second son. The caption read, "Welcome baby James. Thanks to Emma, my name, for inspiring the name. Her loss is my gain." That was followed by a pregnant woman emoji and a skull emoji. By the time she stole the name of my third miscarriage, Charlotte, I was petrified. She'd send me pictures of the nursery with captions like, "I bet you wish this was for your Charlotte." My husband still defended her, saying I was being overly sensitive over just names and pictures. After 4 years, I gave up hoping for a baby. Sarah became pregnant with her 4th child, and at family dinners she'd crack jokes about what name she should steal next. Everyone laughed. Everyone except me. Something inside me snapped that night. If she wanted another name, I'd give her one she'd never forget. I waited until the next family gathering and burst into tears. I told Sarah in private that I'd discovered something incredible in my late mother's diary, a secret middle name she'd never told anyone. Lexitiva. I told her it meant sacred child in an ancient dialect. I even created fake diary pages and showed her a Pinterest board about honoring dead grandparents through baby names. Sarah snatched the name and ran. She announced far and wide that she was naming her daughter Lexitiva Rose to honor our family's hidden history. And that revenge plan was good enough for me until 8 months later, when the universe threw me a surprise. I was pregnant, well into my 3rd trimester. I nearly cried tears of joy. No more commemorations, no more wondering if there was something deeply wrong with me. My husband and I waited to announce it, not wanting to get our hopes up just yet. Then that same week, we got a text. It was Sarah, inviting us to her baby shower. I wore a flowing dress that covered everything. My husband supported my decision, he didn't care anymore. Sarah threw this party in a big way, bigger than any she'd ever thrown before. The whole family was there, plus her mommy blog followers who'd been following little Lexitiva's journey for months. Sarah was in the middle of giving a speech about how she'd discovered the sacred family name. When I stood up. "Actually, Sarah, I have something to share, too," I said, smoothing my dress over my now obvious belly. The room went dead silent. Sarah's mouth froze mid-sentence. My mother-in-law dropped her champagne glass. 29 weeks today, I announced, clutching my belly. We wanted to be sure this time. The room erupted in screams and congratulations. Sarah's face went white. That's when my husband, the saint of our family, stood up and raised his hand. "Sarah, did you say something about Lexitiva, about all the research you've done?" Sarah's face went from white to red. "Yeah, it means sacred child in ancient, It's so weird, he interrupted, pulling out his phone. Because when I Google laxativa, all I get are medical sites about constipation remedies. I had to hold my nose to keep from laughing. The rest of the room was silent. I grabbed my husband's hand and walked out. It was a proud moment for all three of us, but I was fast asleep at 4 in the morning when I felt a sharp pain in my stomach, the same one I'd felt 3 times before. My husband and I rushed to the hospital, but I already knew the truth. It was a miscarriage. It turned out that one of my nightly prenatal vitamin chews had been switched with something deadly to my baby. I knew immediately that Sarah was behind it. I couldn't sleep for days after that. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Sarah's smug face at that baby shower. The police said they couldn't prove anything about the vitamins. The bottle mysteriously disappeared from our bathroom, and the hospital couldn't determine what substance caused the miscarriage. My husband finally stopped defending his sister. He sat on our bed, holding the empty vitamin bottle we'd found hidden in our trash can outside. His hands shook as he turned it over and over. Sarah had been at our house just 2 days before it happened, claiming to help set up the nursery. I began documenting everything. Every text, every social media post, every cruel comment Sarah had made over the years. My laptop became my constant companion as I pieced together the picture I had been too hurt to see before. 3 weeks after losing our baby, I discovered something that chilled my blood. Sarah's best friend, Catherine, worked at the pharmacy where I got all my prescriptions filled. I remembered seeing them giggling together at family gatherings. Catherine always asked intrusive questions about my fertility treatments. I drove to the pharmacy during Catherine's shift. She saw me and tried to hide in the back room, but I cornered her near the vitamin aisle. Her face went pale when I mentioned prenatal vitamins. I don't know what you're talking about, she stammered, but her hands shook as she rearranged the bottles on the shelf. That evening, Sarah posted on her mommy blog about toxic family members who make false accusations. Within hours, her followers had been flooding my social media with hateful messages. My phone was buzzing with notifications calling me jealous, obsessive, and an attention seeker. My husband had deleted his social media accounts after his own sister's followers started attacking him, too. We sat in our living room with the curtains drawn, feeling under siege. He kept apologizing for not believing me sooner. For all the years he'd let Sarah get away with her behavior. The next family dinner was at Sarah's house. We almost didn't go, but my mother-in-law called my husband, crying, begging us not to let this stupid misunderstanding tear our family apart. Against our better judgment, we went. Sarah had strategically placed baby Laxativa's crib right in the center of the dining room. Every time I looked up from my plate, I saw the name stitched into the blanket. Sarah kept making comments about how some people couldn't handle other people's happiness. During dinner, Sarah left to feed the baby. Her laptop sat open on the kitchen counter, the screen still glowing. I don't know what came over me, but I found myself walking toward him, pretending to get more water. My browser was open to her email. My heart was pounding as I saw the subject lines about fertility herbs and natural remedies for miscarriages. I quickly pulled out my phone, my hands shaking as I snapped photo after photo of the screen. "What are you doing?" Sarah's voice cut through the air like a knife. I spun around, the phone still in my hand. She lunged for it, but I pulled away. We struggled in her kitchen, her nails digging into my wrist as she tried to snatch my phone. "Give it to me," she hissed, but I held on tight. My husband heard the commotion and burst in. For the first time in his life, he saw his sister's mask come off completely. Her face was contorted with rage, nothing like the sweet image she usually wore. "She's trying to steal my phone." Sarah quickly changed tactics, tears suddenly appearing. "She's crazy, like I told you." But my husband had already seen the scratches on my wrist, the wild look in his sister's eyes. He stepped between us, and this time he didn't take her side. "We're leaving," he said quietly, taking my hand. Sarah's tears dried instantly. "Fine. Run away like you always do, but everyone will know the truth about her." We drove home in silence, my wrist throbbing where she'd scratched me. I showed my husband the photos I'd managed to take. His face grew paler with each snapshot. The next morning, Sarah's mommy blog posted a long post about how to deal with mentally unstable family members. She claimed I'd attacked her in her own home, that I'd been faking the pregnancy for attention. She even posted a photo of herself with a small bruise on her arm, even though I'd never touched it. Her followers jumped on it. Comments poured in about how strong she was, how awful it was to have such a toxic sister-in-law. Some even started the hashtag Justice for Sarah. My mother-in-law called a few hours later. "You need to apologize," she said, without even asking my side of the story. "This has gone too far. Sarah is considering filing for a restraining order. She poisoned my baby." I cried out, unable to contain myself. "Don't be ridiculous," my mother-in-law snapped. "Sarah would never do something like that. You're clearly having some kind of breakdown. Maybe you should get help." My husband took the phone from me. "Mom, you didn't see what happened. Sarah attacked Emma, not the other way around." "Oh please," his mother sneered. "You're always on her side now." Sarah sent me CCTV footage from her kitchen. It clearly showed Emma going through her personal computer. My heart sank. Of course, Sarah had edited the footage to exclude our fight, to make me look like the aggressor. My husband argued with his mother for a few more minutes before hanging up in frustration. Over the next few days, the situation escalated to a degree I could not have imagined. Sarah filed a report with Child Protective Services, arguing that I was mentally unstable and should not be allowed to adopt children. She had learned that we had begun the adoption process months earlier, before our last pregnancy. The social worker who came to our home was professional, but clearly influenced by the concerns raised. Apparently, followers of Sarah's mommy blog had been calling the adoption agency, emailing about my dangerous behavior. "We've received over 50 complaints," the social worker explained, flipping through her file. "While we're required to investigate all allegations, I want you to know that orchestrated campaigns like this usually indicate a vested interest. We provided references, medical records showing my mental health was fine, everything we could think of, but the damage had been done. The adoption agency suspended our application until their investigation was complete." That night, I cried in my husband's arms. Sarah hadn't just stolen my children's names. She'd tried to steal any chance I had of being a mother. The next morning brought more hell. Sarah posted screenshots of me poking around her laptop, conveniently cropping out anything that showed her research into herbs that cause miscarriages. Her followers called me a criminal, demanding that I be arrested for violating privacy. My husband and I sat at our kitchen table, surrounded by printed emails from the adoption agency. Each one detailed another concerned citizen who had contacted them about my supposed mental instability. The language was eerily similar in dozens of messages. Clearly coordinated. Katerina called me that afternoon, her voice shaking as she whispered into the phone. "Meet me at Elm Street Park. Come alone. I have something to tell you." My husband wanted to come with me, but I knew Katerina would run if she saw him. I found her sitting on a bench near the playground, nervously watching the mothers pushing their children on the swings. "I can't do this anymore," she said as soon as I sat down. "Sarah went too far. The vitamins, she made me switch them. Said they were just harmless herbs to help with your anxiety." My hands clenched into fists. "You knew what it was." Katerina's eyes filled with tears. "She had dirt on me. I'd been taking pills from the pharmacy a little at a time. Just anxiety medication for myself. Nothing serious. But she somehow found out and threatened to report me if I didn't help her." I pulled out my phone to record, but Katerina grabbed my wrist. "No recording. I deny everything if you try to use this against me. I wanted you to know I'm sorry and to warn you. She's not done yet." "What do you mean, she's not done yet?" Katerina glanced around nervously. "She's been stealing your mail. She has copies of all your adoption papers. She knows what agency you're using, who your handler is, everything." My blood ran cold. We wondered why some of our mail seemed to be going missing. Katerina stood up to leave, but I grabbed her arm. "You have to tell someone. The police, the adoption agency, anyone." She pulled her hand away. "I can't lose my job. I have kids, too." She hurried away, leaving me alone on the bench. That night, my husband installed security cameras around our house. We changed all the locks and rerouted our mail to a P.O. box. It felt like we were preparing for war. Sarah's next move came at Thanksgiving dinner. The whole family was gathered at my mother-in-law's house, the tension so thick you could cut it with a knife. Sarah arrived late, making a grand entrance with all 4 of her children dressed in matching outfits. Throughout the meal, she continued to make barbed comments about people who can't let go of the past and the importance of mental health treatment. My husband's jaw clenched tighter with each barb, but he remained silent. Then, as we were clearing away the dessert plates, Sarah stood up and tapped her wine glass. "I have an announcement." The room went silent. Sarah's hand moved to her belly, a familiar gesture I had made many times before. "We're expecting another baby, and I've already picked out the perfect name." My mother-in-law gasped in delight. "Oh, Sarah, how wonderful." "Yes," Sarah continued, her eyes fixed on mine. "If it's a girl, we'll name her Margaret, after Emma's dear late mother." The room spun. My mother had been dead only 6 months. Her name was the last sacred thing I had left. I stood up so quickly that my chair tipped over backwards. "You wouldn't dare," I whispered. Sarah's smile was pure venom. "Why not? It's such a beautiful name, and someone has to use it since you clearly can't." My husband was on his feet now, too. "That's enough, Sarah. You've crossed the line." "Really?" Sarah's voice rose to a screech. "She hacked my computer. She's spreading lies about me. I'm just trying to honor family tradition by stealing dead babies' names." My husband's voice was deathly quiet. The room exploded. My father-in-law started screaming for peace. Sarah's husband looked confused, asking what was really going on. The kids started crying. In the chaos, Sarah grabbed her phone and started live streaming the scene to her mommy blog followers. "You're watching me being attacked in my own family," she said into the camera. "And all because I want to honor my daughter-in-law's mother." My husband grabbed my hand. "We're leaving." As we headed for the door, Sarah called out, "Oh, Emma, maybe you should contact the adoption agency. I heard they got some really interesting information about your mental health history." We drove home in silence, both too angry to speak. When we got home, there was a message on our answering machine from our adoption case manager asking for an urgent call back. My hand shook as I dialed the number. The case manager's voice was carefully neutral as she explained that they had received documentation showing that I had been hospitalized several times for psychiatric problems. "That's not true," I said, my voice shaking. "I've never been hospitalized for anything other than my miscarriages." "I understand," she said. "But we need to investigate these claims. Can you provide your full medical history?" After I hung up, my husband found me sobbing on the floor of our bedroom. He held me as I cried, whispering promises that we would fight, that Sarah would not win. The next day, we drove to the hospital to request my medical records. The receptionist opened my chart, then frowned. "That's weird. There are records here that I don't recognize." My heart sank as she showed us the screen. Someone had added false records of psychiatric hospitalizations to my electronic records, with diagnoses of delusional disorder and pathological lying. "This is fraud," the administrator said. "We'll need to investigate how someone accessed our system." It took 2 weeks to remove the fake records and document them as fraudulent. During that time, Sarah escalated her campaign. She created fake social media accounts in my name, posting rambling rants about wanting to steal other people's children. She sent anonymous messages to my employer about my mental instability. My husband began recording everything. He bought a small camera that he wore on his shirt, documenting every interaction with his family. His mother called him paranoid, but he no longer cared. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Sarah's eldest daughter, Faye, now 8, called our house one evening when her parents were out. "Aunt Emma," her little voice said, "I have something to tell you. Mommy's making us lie about you." My husband quickly began recording as Faye explained how her mother had forced her and her siblings to tell people that I was cruel to them, that I scared them, that I said bad things about their family. "She practices us," Faye said. "Makes us repeat the lies until we get them right. I don't want to anymore. You've never been cruel to us." We saved the footage, adding it to our growing pile of evidence. But Sarah must have found out about Faye's call, because the next day she tweeted about how I was manipulating innocent children against their mother. Her followers were furious, sending death threats to my social media accounts. Someone posted my work address, and protesters showed up at my office with signs calling me a child killer and a pedophile. My boss called me into his office. "I know this is personal," he said, "but it's affecting the company. Maybe you should take a leave of absence until this all blows over." I was effectively suspended. Sarah had succeeded in destroying my reputation, my career prospects, and my chance at adoption. But she wasn't satisfied yet. 2 weeks later, my husband's grandmother celebrated her 90th birthday. We debated whether to go, but his grandmother had always been kind to me, and I didn't want to disappoint her. The party was at a restaurant, neutral territory that we considered safe. Sarah, as usual, arrived late. Making sure all eyes were on her, she blew kisses to her relatives and gushed about her pregnancy, now clearly visible as she cut the cake. I stepped into the restroom. Sarah followed, checking the stalls to make sure we were alone before turning to me. "You should just give up," she said casually, applying lipstick while looking in the mirror. "You'll never be a mother. The adoption agency has already rejected you." "Oh, you didn't know? I have a friend who works there." I remained silent, aware that my husband's camera was recording everything. Sarah continued, taking my silence for defeat. "It was so easy, really. Catherine from the drugstore, my friend from the hospital who helped with your medical records, the social worker who owed me a favor. You never had a chance." "Why?" I finally asked. "What did I do to you?" Sarah's reflection smiled at me. "You married him. You took my brother away from me. He should have always put me first. And then you came along with your fertility story, and suddenly he cared more about you than he did about me. So you ruined my children?" Sarah laughed. "I didn't ruin anything. You did it yourself. I just gave nature a little nudge with that last one. Consider it a favor. You're clearly not meant to be a mother." I left the bathroom without a word, my heart pounding. We finally had her confession on tape. But when my husband checked the camera that night, the battery mysteriously died just before Sarah followed me into the bathroom. We had nothing. The next blow came when Sarah's husband called my husband, asking to meet alone. We assumed he was going to threaten us, but instead he looked haggard and defeated. "I found her diary," he said, sliding the leather notebook across the table. I wasn't peeking. It fell out of her purse. I think you need to see it." The diary was Sarah's, and it was incriminating. Page after page detailed her plans to destroy me, her glee over every miscarriage, her collusion with Catherine and others to sabotage my life. But most disturbing were the entries about other family members she had targeted over the years. She had poisoned her mother-in-law's cat because the woman had suggested she wait to have children. She had crashed her cousin's wedding by sleeping with the groom. She had gotten her college roommate expelled by planting drugs in her dorm. "I don't know who I married," Sarah's husband said, his voice breaking. "The kids. I'm filing for divorce. I'll testify about what I found if I have to." We photocopied every page of the diary before returning it. We finally had real evidence, but Sarah struck first. The next morning, the police showed up at our door with a warrant. Someone had reported us as drug dealers, and they needed to search our home. My husband and I stood in our living room, watching as the officers destroyed our carefully rebuilt life. They found nothing, of course, but the damage was done. Our neighbors watched from their windows as police cars lined our street. After the police left, we found a note tucked under our doormat. In Sarah's handwriting, "Stop now, or next time they'll find something." That night, my husband and I made a decision. We would show everything we had to the family, make them see the truth about Sarah once and for all. We called a family meeting at my mother-in-law's house, saying we had important news to share. Sarah arrived looking smug, probably thinking we were about to announce our capitulation. Instead, my husband hooked up his laptop to the TV and began presenting our evidence. The diary entries, the photos from Sarah's computer, her husband's testimony. Even Faith's recorded confession that she had been coerced into lying. The room was silent as the evidence mounted. Sarah's face changed from smug to panicked to furious. When we showed her the diary entry about poisoning the cat, my mother-in-law gasped. "Fluffy didn't just die," she whispered. Sarah jumped to her feet. "This is all fake. They're trying to frame me because they're jealous of my perfect family." But her husband stood up, too. "It's true. All of it. I've seen the original diary. Sarah, you need help. The dam has broken." Other family members began sharing their stories of Sarah's cruelty over the years. Her pattern of behavior became undeniable. Sarah's mask was finally shattered. She screamed at everyone, calling them liars and traitors. She grabbed a vase and threw it at the wall, sending shards of glass flying across the room. "Are you trying to destroy me?" she shrieked at me. "You barren witch. You'll never have what I have. Never." Her eldest son, James, began to cry. "Mummy, stop. You're scaring us." But Sarah was beside herself. She lashed out at me. And this time I didn't back down. My husband and her husband had to pull us apart as she clawed at my face, screaming obscenities. "I should have used something stronger in those vitamins," she screamed. "I should have made sure you could never even try again." The room went completely silent. Even Sarah seemed to realize what she had just admitted. My father-in-law's voice was cold. "Get out of my house. Don't come back." Sarah looked around the room at her family, her children, her husband. They all looked at her with horror and disgust. "Okay," she spat. "But I'm taking my children." "No," her husband said firmly. "You're not children. Come here." All 4 children ran to their father, even baby Lexitiva in Faye's arms. Sarah stood alone in the center of the room. Finally realizing the consequences of her actions, she left without a word, slamming the door behind her. The family stood in stunned silence for a moment before my mother-in-law began to cry. "I'm so sorry," she sobbed, reaching out for my hand. "I should have believed you. All those kids. I'm so sorry." The fallout was swift. Catherine, fearful of losing her pharmacist's license, came forward with a full confession about switching my vitamins. She produced receipts, text messages from Sarah, everything she needed to prove what had happened. Sarah's husband filed for emergency custody and a restraining order. Her diary was cited in the divorce papers as evidence that she was an unfit mother. He also reported finding searches on her computer about how to induce a miscarriage dating back years. Sarah's mom blog crashed when someone leaked excerpts from her diary to her followers. The woman who had built her brand on being the perfect mother was exposed as a calculating sociopath who bullied family members and sabotaged pregnancies. Within days, she had lost everything: her husband, her children, her family, her online following. The adoption agency called to apologize and reopen our application, noting that fraudulent complaints would actually strengthen our case by showing that we could handle adversity. 3 months later, my husband and I stood in a courthouse, finalizing the adoption of newborn twins. We named them Charlotte and James, reclaiming the name Sarah had stolen. As I signed the papers, I thought about the long journey that had brought us here. Sarah had faced criminal charges for vitamin substitution, though her lawyer had sought a plea deal that included mental health treatment in lieu of jail time. Her children were thriving with their father, finally free of their mother's toxic influence. Faye had started calling me Aunt Emma again, and she asked if she could help babysit the twins when they were older. "I want to be a good older cousin," she said. "Not like my mom was a sister." As we drove home with our children, my husband reached out and squeezed my hand. We had survived Sarah's campaign of terror, and somehow we had come out stronger. The twins cooed in their car seats, and I smiled through my tears. Sarah had tried to take everything from me. But in the end, she had only stolen from herself. I had my family again, my children, my life. And Sarah, she got exactly what she had always given to others, nothing but the consequences of her own cruelty. The adoption ceremony in court ended at noon. By 12:30, Sarah was already causing trouble. My husband was the first to notice her, standing across the street from the courthouse steps where we were taking pictures with Charlotte and James. She wore large sunglasses and a baseball cap, but her tense posture gave her away. "Don't look," he whispered, moving to block her view of the twins. The photographer noticed our tension and suggested that we move into the courthouse garden. As we were walking away, I heard quick footsteps behind us. Sarah had crossed the street. "Those were supposed to be my names," she called out. Security intercepted her before she got close. We watched as they led her away, screaming about her rights as an aunt. The twins slept through it all, unaware of the drama surrounding their first official day as ours. That afternoon, we discovered that Sarah had been busier than we thought. Our social media adoption announcement, posted by my mother-in-law with our permission, had been screenshot and reposted on Sarah's new blog, with comments about baby snatchers and name snatchers. Catherine had texted me a warning. Sarah had been at the pharmacy that morning, asking weird questions about baby medications and allergies. Catherine refused to give her any information and alerted her manager, but the encounter left everyone uneasy. We installed a doorbell camera that night. My husband also switched pediatricians to one across town, just to be safe. The twins needed their first checkup the following week, and we weren't taking any chances. Sarah's husband called the next day with disturbing news. She'd broken into his house while the kids were at school, taking photo albums and baby clothes. She'd also left a note demanding visits with her kids. "The restraining order covers the kids," he assured us. "But she's getting desperate. She stayed with various friends, telling them, 'You're all ganging up on me for no reason.'" 3 days later, Sarah showed up at my husband's workplace. She was waiting in the garage, approaching him as he walked to his car. My husband immediately began recording on his phone. "You've turned everyone against me," she said, blocking his path. "Even my own children won't talk to me." My husband tried to step around her, but she moved with him. "Sarah, you have to leave. You're violating the protective order. That piece of paper doesn't mean anything. You're my brother. You're supposed to protect me, not destroy me." "You destroyed yourself," he said quietly. Sarah's face twisted. She grabbed his phone and threw it at the concrete wall. It shattered on impact. She then ran to her car and sped away before security could arrive. A broken phone meant we lost that footage, but the parking lot cameras captured it all. My husband filed a police report, and a warrant was issued for Sarah's arrest. She eluded the police for a week. During that time, she created dozens of fake social media profiles, flooding our accounts and our employers' accounts with accusations. She claimed we'd stolen her children, broken up her marriage, and planted evidence against her. One profile in particular stood out. It used courtroom photos of Charlotte and James, edited to show Sarah holding them. The captions claimed they were her twins, whom we'd kidnapped. Several of her old blog followers, still loyal despite everything, shared the posts. My boss called me into his office again. "I know it's not your fault," he said, sliding a printed screenshot across his desk. "But HR is concerned. These kidnapping allegations, though false, are affecting our work environment." I stared at the doctored photo of Sarah with our twins. "What are you saying?" "Take an extended leave of absence. Paid. Let this situation play out, and then we'll reassess it." I cleared my desk that afternoon, trying not to cry. Sarah had now deprived me of active employment along with everything else. That night, Faye called again. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Aunt Emma, Mom's here. She's outside Dad's house. She keeps texting me to let her in." My husband immediately called his brother-in-law while I stayed on the phone with Faye. We could hear Sarah pounding on the door, screaming for the kids. "She says she has new vitamins for the baby," Faye whispered, "special ones to make her smart like her." My blood ran cold. "Faye, don't open that door. Stay away from the windows." The police arrived within minutes. We listened on the phone as they arrested Sarah. She kept screaming about her rights as a mother. How we were all conspiring against her, how she just wanted to give her baby vitamins. They found an unmarked pill bottle in her purse. Sarah spent 2 nights in jail before posting bail. Her lawyer argued that she was having a mental health crisis and needed treatment, not jail time. The judge agreed to bail with conditions. She had to wear an electronic ankle monitor and stay away from all family members. Tests showed that the pills contained a mild sedative, Nothing immediately dangerous but completely inappropriate for a baby. That was enough to add attempted child endangerment to her charges. Sarah's former friends began to distance themselves as more of the truth emerged. One of them, a woman named Patricia, who had given Sarah a place to live, called me directly. "I'm so sorry," Patricia said. "I believed her stories about you, but then I caught her in my medicine cabinet at 3 a.m., going through my prescriptions. When I confronted her, she said she was just looking for aspirin." But you don't believe her?" I finished. "No, and that's not all. She used my computer to create these fake profiles. I have screenshots of everything." Patricia emailed us dozens of screenshots showing Sarah's activity, creating fake accounts, editing photos, coordinating harassment campaigns. It was all there, timestamped and undeniable. We added it to our evidence file, which had grown thick enough to fill a filing cabinet. My husband organized everything chronologically, preparing for the criminal trial. Meanwhile, we focused on our new life with the twins. They were developing beautifully, gaining weight, and starting to smile. Charlotte had my husband's eyes, and James had my stubborn jaw. Each milestone felt like a victory Sarah couldn't steal. The adoption agency called for a follow-up visit. The social worker who came was the same one who had investigated Sarah's false claims. She smiled at how well the twins were doing. "I want to apologize again for the investigation," she said, watching Charlotte squeeze my finger. "It's clear now that those complaints were malicious." "We understand you had to follow protocol," my husband said. "Yes, but I want you to know that we have flagged Sarah's name in our system. If she ever tries to adopt or interfere with another adoption, we will know immediately." It was small consolation, but we took whatever protection we could get. Sarah's next step was through her lawyer. She sued for visitation rights with her grandchildren, claiming that we were alienating her from her legal relationship with the twins. The suit was baseless. She wasn't their biological grandmother and had no legal standing, but we had to respond anyway. Our lawyer laughed when he read the filing. "She's grasping at straws. No judge will even hear this case." He was right. The lawsuit was dismissed within a week. But Sarah didn't stop there. She started showing up at places she knew we'd be: the grocery store, the park, the pediatrician's office, always far enough away to comply with the protective order's distance requirements but close enough that her presence would be noticed. One afternoon at the park, she sat on a bench 50 feet away, staring at us the entire time. Other parents noticed and pulled their children away from her. When the concerned mother asked if we knew her, I simply said she was the person we had a protective order against. Word quickly spread around the playground. Sarah must have realized her tactics weren't working, because she changed her approach. She began sending letters to our house through her lawyer, claiming she wanted to reconcile. Each letter contained subtle threats wrapped in the language of forgiveness and family healing. "I forgive you for turning my family against me," one letter read. "I'm willing to put the lies you've spread behind me if you'll just let me be a part of the twins' lives. They need their aunt. Don't make me prove how much." We gave each letter to our lawyer and the police. The detective handling her case told us they were building a strong case for stalking in addition to the existing charges. Catherine reached out again, this time with more information. "Sarah has been texting me from multiple numbers," she said, "offering me money for information about your prescriptions. I blocked each number, but they keep coming." She forwarded us screenshots. Sarah offered increasingly larger amounts, money we knew she didn't have because her husband had frozen their joint accounts during the divorce. The divorce was moving quickly. Sarah's husband was granted full custody, and Sarah was allowed only supervised visits at a court-appointed facility. According to him, she showed up for exactly one visit. She spent the entire time telling the kids how everyone was lying about her, and she never looked back. "The kids are in therapy," he told us over coffee. "Especially Faye, she feels guilty for telling you about the lies. I keep telling her she did the right thing." We assured him we were happy to talk to Faye anytime she needed reassurance. The poor girl had been carrying the weight of her mother's manipulation for years. 2 months after the adoption, Sarah made her biggest mistake. She managed to get a job at a daycare center in a nearby town using her maiden name and somehow passed a background check before her allegations were fully processed. We only found out about it because another mother recognized her from the mommy blog drama and alerted the daycare center. They immediately fired her and reported the incident to Child Protective Services. The violation, working with children while under investigation for child endangerment, added another charge to her growing list. Her attorney dropped her as a client, citing irreconcilable differences in legal strategy. Sarah represented herself at her next hearing. She showed up in an ill-fitting suit, her hair unwashed, with dark circles under her eyes. She rambled on for 20 minutes about conspiracy theories and family betrayal before the judge cut her off. "Miss Sarah," the judge said sternly, "you need proper legal representation. I am assigning you a public defender." "I don't need help," Sarah insisted. "I just need people to hear the truth." "Whose truth?" the judge asked. "In my opinion, I'm the victim here." The judge ordered another hearing and ordered Sarah to undergo a psychiatric evaluation. She stormed out of the courtroom, screaming about injustice. In the parking lot, she confronted us again. This time, my husband and I were ready. We were both recording on our phones as she approached. "Enjoy them while you can," she hissed, gesturing at the twins in their car seats. "You think you've won, but I know a thing or two. I know what formula you buy, what diapers you use, where you take them for walks." "Sarah, you're being recorded," my husband said calmly. "And you're violating a protective order." She laughed, the sound deprived of reason. "Protective order? You mean that paper joke? I've violated it a dozen times. It's easy to keep tabs on you when you're so predictable." "Thank you for admitting it," I said, ending the recording. Her face went pale as she realized what she'd done. She turned and ran for her car, but courthouse security was already approaching. They detained her until the police arrived. This time, bail was revoked. Sarah will await trial in jail. The judge cited her admission to multiple breaches of protective orders and her escalating pattern of behavior as reasons for holding her in custody. Her husband brought the children to visit us a week after Sarah was taken into custody. It was the first time they had seen the twins in person. Faye was gentle and affectionate with them, while James and the other children were curious but wary. "Mommy's in jail?" little James asked his father. "Yeah, mate. She's made some bad choices." "Is it our fault?" Charlotte asked, her 7-year-old face contorted with worry. "No, honey. Nothing Mommy did was your fault. She's mentally ill and needs help." The children seemed to accept this explanation. They played with the twins' toys and helped feed them bottles. It was a glimpse of what family gatherings might have been like if Sarah hadn't poisoned everything with her jealousy. My mother-in-law arrived later that week. She had aged years in recent months, and the stress of Sarah's actions was weighing heavily on her. "I failed her somehow," she said, watching the twins sleep. "You must have. Normal people don't do what she did." "Mental illness doesn't mean you've failed as a parent," my husband told her gently. "Sarah had made choices, bad choices, and that's on her, not you." We spent the day looking through old photo albums, pictures of Sarah as a child, smiling and seemingly normal. My mother-in-law pointed out moments she now recognized as warning signs: Sarah's rage when she didn't win a game, her manipulation of her younger cousins, the mysterious illness of a classmate who had vied with her for the job of class president. "I always made excuses," my mother-in-law admitted. "I said she was competitive, driven. I never wanted to see what was really going on." The criminal trial was scheduled for 6 months. Sarah's public defender tried to build an insanity defense, but the prosecutor felt confident. The evidence was overwhelming. From Catherine's testimony, to the journal entries, to Sarah's own recorded confessions, we settled into a new routine. Visits to the park without looking back. Doctor's visits without fear of intrusion. Family dinners where Sarah's name was rarely mentioned. The twins grew each day, their personalities emerging. Charlotte was serious, studying everything with deep concentration. James was all smiles and giggles, charming everyone he met. They were perfect, and they were ours, and Sarah couldn't reach them because of the bars. The daycare where Sarah briefly worked sent us a letter. They were implementing new background check procedures because of what had happened. They also offered us a free place at the daycare if we ever needed it. Their way of apologizing for the security breach. We politely declined. The twins would stay with family or trusted friends when needed. Trust was earned slowly these days. Catherine sent one last text message. I'm moving. New job, new state. I need to start over where no one knows what I did. I'm sorry again. Take care of those babies. I didn't respond. Some bridges, once burned, could never be repaired. 5 months after Sarah's incarceration, we received some unexpected news. She was pregnant. Apparently she'd been seeing someone before her arrest, and now she was going to give birth in prison. Her husband was devastated. Those kids don't deserve another sibling born into this mess, he said. And who knows what she took while she was pregnant. She was not stable. The pregnancy added another layer of complexity to the trial. Her attorney pressed harder for an insanity defense, arguing that no sane woman would commit the crimes while pregnant. The prosecutor countered that Sarah's calculated actions demonstrated clear premeditation, not insanity. We attended each preliminary hearing, sitting quietly in the back row, testifying. Sarah grew larger and more disheveled with each appearance. She glared at us with naked hatred, her hands cuffed over her growing belly. During one hearing, she exploded. They stole my life, she screamed, pointing at us. My children, my family, everything, and now they sit there and judge me. The judge ordered her removed from the courtroom. As guards led her out, she turned around one more time. Charlotte and James were supposed to be mine. The courtroom fell silent after her outburst. Even her lawyer looked defeated. A month before the trial, Sarah went into labor. The baby, a girl, was born healthy, despite everyone's fears. Sarah named her Emma. My hands shook when I heard it. Even now, even after everything, she was trying to hurt me. Using my name for her child, conceived in chaos and born in custody. Child Protective Services immediately took baby Emma away. Sarah had no rights to her, given her current situation and the charges. The child was placed in foster care while the state worked out a permanent placement. Sarah's husband considered taking her in, but ultimately decided against it. My kids have been through enough, he explained. I can't bring home their half-sister as a constant reminder of their mother's breakdown. The trial began on a cold February morning. Charlotte and James were 11 months old, already walking and babbling their first words. We left them with my father-in-law and took our seats in the courtroom. Sarah walked in shackled, her postpartum body hidden in an orange jumpsuit. She had lost weight since the birth, her face gaunt and sunken. She found us in the courtroom immediately, her gaze unwavering. Catherine testified first, detailing how Sarah had blackmailed her into switching my vitamins. She broke down in tears during cross-examination, but stuck to her story. The pharmacy had already revoked her license. This testimony was part of her plea deal. Sarah's husband took the stand next, producing a diary and describing years of manipulative behavior he had failed to notice. He told stories of Sarah's escalating cruelty to family members, her obsession with control, her inability to accept any perceived slight. When it was my turn to testify, I spoke clearly and calmly about the stolen names, the poisoned vitamins, the systematic destruction of my life. I showed photographs of the twins, healthy and thriving despite Sarah's efforts to prevent their existence. She wanted me to suffer, I said, meeting Sarah's gaze, because I had something she couldn't control. Her brother's love and loyalty. Sarah's lawyer tried to paint me as vindictive, suggesting that I had engineered the whole thing to steal Sarah's life. But the evidence spoke louder than his theories. The prosecution had presented everything. Emails, fake social media accounts, doctored medical records, a campaign of harassment. They played recordings of Sarah making threats and confessing. They showed the jury the unmarked pills she had brought into her children's home. Sarah had testified on her own behalf, against the advice of her lawyer. She rambled on about conspiracies and betrayals, claiming I had been plotting to destroy her since the day I met her brother. She insisted the vitamins were meant to help me, that the names were coincidences, that everyone was lying. I'm a good mother, she insisted, tears streaming down her face. They took my children because they were jealous of what I had. The prosecutor's cross-examination was brutal. He went over every point of evidence, forcing her to confront her own words and actions. Sarah's story changed with every question. The contradictions piled up. Finally, he asked, "Did you or did you not tamper with Emma's prenatal vitamins?" Sarah was silent for a long moment, then said quietly, "She didn't deserve to be a mother." The courtroom erupted. The judge called for order as Sarah's lawyer clutched his head. She had just confessed on the stand. Closing arguments had been brief. The evidence was overwhelming. The confession was damning. The jury had deliberated less than 2 hours. Guilty on all counts. Sarah showed no emotion as the verdict was read. She stared straight ahead, her face impassive. The judge scheduled sentencing for next month. Reporters waited outside the courthouse. We walked past them without comment. There was nothing to say. Justice had been done, but it was not a joy. A family was broken, children were left without a mother, a girl named Emma was growing up in foster care. The sentencing hearing was quieter. Sarah looked drugged, her movements slow and deliberate. Character witnesses took the stand for both sides. Her children were not present. The judge sentenced her to 15 years, with the possibility of parole in 7. She would serve her time in a facility with a mental health program. It was lighter than the prosecutor had wanted, but harsher than her lawyer had hoped. As the guards led her away, Sarah turned one last time. "Take care of my Emma," she said quietly. I didn't know if she meant me or the baby. Maybe both, maybe neither. We drove home to our twins, who greeted us with smiles and open arms. Charlotte had learned to say Mom while we were gone. James demonstrated his new ability to build towers of blocks. That night, after the twins were asleep, my husband and I sat on our porch. The stars were bright, the air was crisp. We didn't talk about the trial, or Sarah, or the years of pain. We just sat together, breathing in the peace. 2 weeks later, we got a call from Child Protective Services. Sarah's baby, Emma, needed a permanent place. Would we consider adopting her? My husband and I looked at each other, then at our twins playing on the floor. Charlotte was trying to feed James a toy car while he giggled. They were so happy, so innocent. "We'll think about it," I told the social worker. We talked for hours that night. Could we raise Sarah's baby? Could we look at her every day and not see her mother? Could we deny an innocent baby a loving home because of who gave birth to her? In the end, love won out. Baby Emma joined our family 3 months later. We kept her first name but gave her a new middle name, Hope. Sarah's children visited us often. They adored all 3 babies, especially Faye, who took her role as a big cousin seriously. Their father began dating a kind woman who was good with children. The healing was slow, but it happened. My mother-in-law found peace in her role as a grandmother. She spoiled all the children equally, making up for lost time. She never mentioned Sarah unless asked, and even then only in passing. "She's getting help," was all she'd say. That's what's important now. I went back to work when the twins were 2. My boss welcomed me back with a promotion, acknowledging how professionally I'd handled an impossible situation. My coworkers threw a little party with baby photos on my desk. Life settled into a new normal. 3 kids under 3 was chaos, but a beautiful chaos. Emma grew up looking nothing like her biological mother. All bright smiles and a gentle nature. The twins accepted her as their sister without question. We told them age-appropriate truths as they grew, about how families can be complicated, about mental illness, about choosing love over hate, about how sometimes the people who are supposed to love you can't, but that doesn't mean you're unlovable. One day, Catherine wrote a long letter apologizing and updating us on her new life. She was in therapy, working at a hospital, trying to make amends for her actions. I wrote back one day, wishing her well. Some forgiveness takes time. Sarah's husband remarried when their youngest was 10. It was a small but joyful wedding. All 4 children were there, beaming with happiness. They had stability again. We heard from Sarah's lawyer from time to time. She took medication, went to therapy, worked in the prison library. She found faith, then lost it, then found it again. She wrote letters to her children, which her ex-husband kept unopened, waiting for them to decide if they wanted to read them someday. She never wrote to us. We were grateful for that. For the twins' 5th birthday, we had a big party. All the cousins came, as well as school friends and neighbors. Faye, now a teenager, helped organize games. Sarah's other children sang happy birthday with genuine joy. Baby Emma, now 3, tried to blow out her siblings' candles. Charlotte gently stopped her while James laughed. They were so patient with their little sister, protective and loving. My husband's grandmother, now 95, sat in her wheelchair, beaming. She had lived to see her family heal from the fractures Sarah had caused. She held baby Emma in her lap, whispering stories of family history, the good parts. That night, after cake and presents and too much excitement, we put 3 exhausted children to bed. Charlotte insisted on one more story. James wanted more cuddles, and Emma needed her special blanket laid out perfectly. As I closed Emma's door, I thought of Sarah in her cell. Did she think about the children she had lost because of her own actions? Did she regret the path she had chosen? Had she ever accepted responsibility? I would never know, and that was okay. Her path was hers alone now. My husband found me in the hallway, pulling me into his arms. We had survived the impossible and built something beautiful from the ashes. Our children were happy, healthy, loved. That was what mattered. The next morning brought the usual chaos. Spilled cereal, lost shoes, arguments over toys, the usual family life. Charlotte helped Emma find her favorite dress while James fed the dog breakfast. They were good kids, kind kids, despite, or perhaps because of, their origin story. My phone buzzed with a text from Faye. Can I babysit this weekend? I want to practice for when I have kids of my own someday. I smiled as I typed back, yes. The family cycle continued. A healthier one now, built on truth and choice, not manipulation and pain. Sarah tried to destroy us with her jealousy and cruelty. Instead, she created a bigger, stronger family, united by love and resilience. Her biological children thrived without her poison. Her baby grew up surrounded by the love she tried to take from others. And we had everything she wanted, not because we stole it, but because we earned it through patience, persistence, and the choice to love even when it hurt. The twins started kindergarten that fall. Charlotte organized her supplies with military precision while James charmed his teacher in minutes. Emma watched them go, tears in her eyes, counting the days until she could join them. We stood at the bus stop, 3 parents waving goodbye. My husband squeezed my hand as the bus pulled away. We had made it. Against all odds, we had made it. That afternoon, while Emma slept, I finally opened the box I kept in our closet. Inside were the ultrasound photos of our lost babies, the ones whose names Sarah had stolen. I looked at each one, remembering the hope and heartbreak they represented. Then I added more photos. Charlotte and James and Emma playing together. Life from loss, joy from sadness, family from the ashes of someone else's destruction. I closed the box and put it away. The past had been honored, but not the subject of constant reflection. The present required too much attention, too much love, too much life to waste time on what might have been. Downstairs, Emma woke up, demanding a snack. I went down to meet her, ready for whatever came next. We had survived the worst of Sarah. Everything else was just life, messy, beautiful, ordinary life.